1853, and the Ottoman Empire declares war on Russia. Now at this point, probably wondering why. We just jumped into this, and the Ottomans are declaring war on Russia. Now there are a lot of reasons for this, but the main ones boil down to these things. There were tensions between Russia and the Ottomans over control over holy places in Jerusalem. Also, Nicholas I, he was the protector of Christians within the Ottoman Empire. However, Napoleon III, who was the Emperor of France at this time, actually got the position from the Ottomans after they caved and gave him it, which is very shocking in my opinion. And Nicholas I, he didn't like this obviously, and he sent his forces to the Ottoman Danubian principalities. And unsurprisingly, the Ottoman Sultan Abdulmajid declared war on the Russian Empire because, obviously people don't like it when their territory is being invaded and such. I wouldn't either. Now, before we go into the war aspect, the big boom fun stuff, it is important to look at what the other countries of Europe's thoughts on this matter were. Now, overall, the countries of Europe, they really didn't want this conflict. The British, they did not want the Russians to gain any more power than they already had. The French wanted to improve their international prestige. Prussia was actually neutral in this, and however, the Austrians is where it gets kind of interesting here, because they were largely in support of the Russians because they had helped the Austrians with the Hungarian Revolution of 1848. But in the 19th century, they gotta have something. That something was that they were concerned with Russia in the Balkans, more specifically its links to the Slavic and Orthodox people. Alright, so now it's finally time to get into the big boom explosion, fun stuff, yeah. The Russians quickly came out with a naval victory at the Battle of Sinop, sinking the Ottoman fleet. 1854 rolled around. The British and French looked on. They feared that the Russians would win the war. It is for this reason that they gave Russia an ultimatum: make peace or risk Anglo-French intervention. Obviously, the Russians didn't accept this for a number of reasons. Mainly it stemmed from their ego and overconfidence. What I mean by this is that a strong national pride, and they refused to leave Sevastopol. Also, they were very confident that the other powers would jump in, such as Austria or Prussia. They would not. They also were confident that the war would stay local and that their military was already strong enough. The main assault on the Russians began in 1854 with the Allies landing in Crimea. The Allies were going to head south because they wanted to capture the fortress of Sevastopol, but the Russians met them at the Battle of the Alma. The Allies ended up winning this battle. Little side note on this is the main reason, or one of the main reasons that the Allies were actually able to win this battle was because the British and French were equipped with a better type of musket, and these muskets could aim easier and had over twice the range of Russian rifles. I think it was around 200 meters to 500 meters. It was pretty nice. With this win under the belt, the Allies headed south and encircled the fortress of Sevastopol. However, the Russians did not just sit there and let their city be besieged. They launched attacks at the Allies. One popular battle is the Russians attempting to recapture Bakalava in order to break the siege. This saw the charge of the Light Brigade. Hopefully you remember that. Now this was an absolute slaughter for the British forces. The brigade defeated the gunners, but was counterattacked by roughly 2,160 Russian light cavalry. It lost 469 of its 664 cavalrymen. Outnumbered 11-1, the 195 survivors retreated. 1854 is over and 1855 is here. 1855 is a big year for this war, starting off the Kingdom of Sardinia joined the war on the Allied side. This was mainly because they wanted to get on the good side of Britain and France so that they would get support, or at least like nicerness, like they're more in support of Italian unification. Additionally, the British and French began naval assaults on the Baltic Sea, which hurt Russian trade and hurt the movement of supplies and troops to Crimea. Thirdly, Nicholas I, the quote protector of Christians within the Ottoman Empire, died and was succeeded by Alexander II, who wanted to continue the war until victory. This led the Russians doing more attacks to try and liberate Sevastopol and even invading the Ottoman Empire. All of this did fail, though. In September of 1855, Sevastopol fell. The Crimean War was now lost to the Russians, and they agreed to a peace treaty in early 1856.
The conditions were that all sides would give back any occupied territory except for Russia, who lost a little bit of territory. Russia was no longer the protector of Christians, and the Black Sea was to remain demilitarized.
Now, the effects that had on each country varies by country. Beginning off, this for Russia, this was complete humiliation.
The Ottomans regained some prestige and helped stop the decline a little.
Now, the British, they were down bad. They were so embarrassed after the Crimean War because they had military mismanagement, ineffective leadership, media coverage, exposed flaws, there's public disillusionment, and there was incidents like the charge of the Light Brigade that were just not it for them. The officers were not chosen for merit, and the soldiers had to consume horrible rations. This saw a huge spread of disease, mostly cholera. And the French, they only benefited though. They're like the opposite. They won back a lot of prestige, and they demonstrated that their army was in fact the greatest in Europe at this time. Well, now it's time to talk about the casualty ratings per country. Now, the Allied forces against the Russian were 603,000 strong, which is actually less than the Russian Empire, which had 889,000. But the Russians definitely suffered greater losses. They kind of have a tendency of that in wars. They had 450,000 casualties, while the British had 22,000, the French 95,000, the Ottomans 45,000, the Kingdom of Sardinia 2,166. However, it is worth noting that the majority of deaths were not a result of actual like combat, like shoot, shoot, stab, stab stuff, but rather like the cough, cough, sneeze, sneeze diseases out here. Because, for example, 2,700 of the British Empire's forces were killed in action compared to the 17,000 who died of disease. So it's a differential there.